The extraordinary belongs to those that create it. Rebelling against business plans and debt, rebelling against what society expects of us to build cool businesses, make money, have fun, and do good. Let's create something extraordinary together. Welcome to the Rebel Entrepreneur. There are so many different ways to build a business. You can raise money, you can spend your own money, you can start with a customer's money. There are so many ways to build a business. And what I love about this podcast is we get to look at all the different ways people start and what they've learnt along the journey. I'm super excited for this episode because Diania from the EconoMe conference shares warts and all the pros and cons, what worked and what didn't, of launching a conference business. Welcome to the Rebel Entrepreneur Podcast, and I've been super excited about this episode for a while. I have with me Diania from the EconoMe conference. Welcome to the show, Diania.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
I've been looking forward to this because we had this chat about the conference, and some of the things you said about what you learnt running a conference really, really applied to the audience of the Rebel Entrepreneur Podcast. And so before we get into that, what is the EconoMe conference?
Yeah. So the EconoMe conference is an event that I produce. We just had our second event, but this has been something that I've been working on since the summer of 2018. And essentially, it's a party about money. It's also been described.
That sounds fun.
Oh yeah. We party hard at EconoMe. It's also been described as the TED Talks of the FIRE movement. So we essentially have main stage speakers that talk about financial independence from a variety of different angles. And then we also have breakout sessions because not only can you learn from the amazing main stage speakers, but there's a lot of knowledge in the room. And so the breakout sessions are really designed to get you talking to each other. And then the event also has a ton of just social activities. And it really is about community and inspiration.
So it's a weekend-long conference all about money.
Exactly.
Which is fantastic. Like, what inspired you to start this? What made you go, I need a conference on money? And you must know I'm the biggest fan of self-development. Like, this is where I belong in the world.
I love it. So really what inspired this is my own personal journey in finding the FIRE movement. So I found myself at 28 years old. I was living in New York City. I was 30 grand in debt for like no good reason. It was like credit card debt and student loans. Half of it was student loans, which doesn't sound too bad to have 15 grand of student loans, but I had a full academic scholarship to college. I shouldn't have had any student loans. It was so stupid, right? So I discover, like a lot of people who probably listen to your show, I discovered Mr. Money Mustache just kind of accidentally. And I like to describe that as this refreshing punch in the face because, I mean, I had never heard anyone talk about money the way that he did. And I think that whole period in my life, it just really helped me realize how much I was wasting my privilege. You know, there's no reason why I should have been in debt. I was simply living outside my means, and I was stuck in that consumerist behavior that, you know, is ingrained in us. And so I really needed a wake-up call, and Pete was the guy to do it. And so I got obsessed with that blog. I read every article, like devoured it with a spoon, you know, and that led me to get out of 30 grand of debt in 11 months.
Wow.
And from there, I started saving and investing about 60% of my income. And it opened up a world of opportunity for me. I ended up negotiating a remote working arrangement with my employer in 2017 before it was the norm. Like now it's pretty normal to work remotely, but at the time it was a very unconventional ask, right? So I worked up the courage to ask for that. And then I also got a 2-month unpaid sabbatical to go walk the Camino in Spain. I spent It took me 38 days to walk 500 miles across a country. And like, it was just this incredible life experience that would have never been possible, in my financial situation previously. And so I come back home to Cincinnati because I had moved from New York City to Cincinnati back in 2017. And, I buy a house, I adopt a dog, and life was good. I kind of set myself on this path to reach financial independence by the time I was 40 years old. I'm currently 34. So this was the plan, like reach FI by 40.
You've still got ages. That was my plan as well, by the way.
Yeah.
40 was my FI target.
Yeah, well, that all goes to shit, and we'll talk about that later. Oh, sorry. Can I curse on this show? I tend to.
That's fine. We'll just put a warning at the beginning. Hide your kids.
Okay. Hide your kids. Hide your kids. So anyway, during this time, like after I got out of debt, and I found myself going to a lot of events. I love to meet people in person. I go to a lot of, conferences and industry events like in my corporate career. And so Mr. Money Mustache had spoke at this event called World Domination Summit. I think he might have done it in like 2015 or 2016. And so he must have done it in 2015 because I think the first year that I went was 2016. And this event is incredible. I mean, as someone super frugal, to get out of 30 grand of debt in 11 months, I spent $700 on a ticket to World Domination Summit, and it was worth every penny because the people that you meet there are living these really expansive lives. And the presentations on stage were just phenomenal. And I left that event, and I've gone 3 or 4 times now. Every time I go, I leave feeling like my life is so full of possibility because it's almost like I'm getting that energy through osmosis, through the people I'm surrounding myself with. And so I decided that I wanted to create something that would give people that feeling about money. And so that's where this idea of EconoMe came from. And the funny thing about it is that this was supposed to be my retirement project. This was supposed to be when I reach financial independence and I don't have to worry about working for money. What would I do with my time? I would want to create something amazing. And so that was the original plan, but I just got so excited about it that I couldn't wait.
Why wait?
I couldn't wait. I know I couldn't wait until 40 to do this. And so I did it. I did it now. I started in the summer of 2018, starting to build this thing. And it took me about 20 months to plan my first event. Why don't you guess the date of the first event? I won't make you do math here. It was March 7th of 2020.
Oh no.
It was 1 week. It was literally 1 week before everything shut down. We actually still were able to have it. If it would have been scheduled 1 week later, we would have had to cancel it. And I felt like I dodged a bullet, and it went really, really well. But then of course, COVID happens, and when you're building a business, and you kind of always think about like what could go wrong and what could the potential obstacles be that I need to navigate? And I would have never anticipated a pandemic would affect this in-person event that I was building. But it ended up working out just fine. I mean, we had 250 people at the first event. Naturally, there had to be a bit more of a lag between the first event and the second event because we were still navigating the pandemic. But we just had the second event on March 13th and 14th of this year, just a few weeks ago. And we had 400 people there.
Wow.
Including Mr. Money Mustache, which is crazy to me because like this guy changed my life and now he's supporting my thing. I mean, it's just magical.
Yes, I heard that Mr. Money Mustache and Mr. 1500, they were all coming along, and I so wished I could have been there, but yeah, I'm only allowed to be in the USA for so long before they get annoyed with me, and the Border Control was quite annoyed with me last time I turned up. They said, "You've been here too much, Donegan, get out." So that's incredible. That's fantastic. So question for you, because people, like, to start a podcast, to start an event, having a famous speaker adds massive credibility and gives a reason for people to listen, come along, how do you go about getting speakers for your event? How have you
Mm.
approached that?
Well, I'll tell you that the first event, I called on 150 people to get my
Wow.
9 people. And the reason why it was so difficult is because no one knew who I was. I didn't have a
Yeah.
blog. I didn't have, like, no one knew me from a row of goats, you know? And so I was calling on a lot of people, and they were just kind of like, well, you're unproven. You have no track record. Yes, you have a successful corporate career, but you don't have much to lead us to believe that you can produce a large scale production like this. And so I was met with a lot of skepticism. I was met with a lot of naysayers. I was told things like, how are you going to get anyone from the fire movement, these people who are supposedly so frugal, how are you going to get them to spend money to come to an event like this? And so it was tough. But here's the thing. I was able to I remember the first person that was like a bigger name that believed me and believed in my vision and my mission and what I was trying to build. It was Jillian Johnsrud.
Aha.
And she just was super encouraging to me at a time that I really needed it. I was just getting a lot of no's, a lot of no's, a lot of no's. And you can actually cut this out, Alan, but your team was one of those no's. Yeah, you can cut
Sorry
that out
about
if you want.
that. No, no, leave that in there.
Yeah, yeah. There were a lot of people that were very not nice to me.
Oh no. I hope we were at
Yes.
least nice when we said no.
Actually, that was a conversation I remember being very not nice.
Oh no.
But here's the thing: I was used to at that point because I could understand why people were taking that position. Like, first of all, I was asking for speakers and I didn't have funds to pay them.
Yes.
And now I cover travel and accommodations, but at the time I was earmarking like $500 a speaker just to help them with travel and accommodations, and that was like a big kind of non-starter for a lot of people.
Yeah,
However, I'm
because
calling on mostly financially independent people that supposedly don't don't necessarily need to work for money. But that being said, you know it was very challenging to convince people to believe in me. But once I could convince one or two, then it started to get my confidence up, right? And like, I don't need 150 speakers. I only needed 9 for the first one. And so, once I got Jillian, she kind of started making a couple of warm introductions for me.
that
And
changes the game.
yes, that totally changes the game. So she vouched for me a little bit, and I was able to get some more people. But yeah, I would say I have a background in sales and cold calling. So I was pounding the pavement. I mean, it was all hustle.
And that can be very tough when you first start something because, yeah, you're kind of magicking something out of nothing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And no one's ever seen anything like this before. So like, I had a frame of reference because I actually modeled my event after World Domination Summit and like the best aspects of that event. But if you don't know what that event is, then you don't really know that frame of reference. So I kind of used TED Talks to describe it, but also it has a party flair to it. It was just, people couldn't really wrap their head around this thing that didn't exist yet. Plus me, who was completely unproven.
so how did that make it easier for the second year? Having
Oh
had
yeah.
something, yeah.
Yeah, because what I was able to do is I invested in videography, like good videography. I had a lighting engineer, I had 3 camera angles,
Wow.
I had a sound engineer. So I really invested in production value for this event. And the people that came, the 250 people that came to the first one, I far exceeded their expectations. And so I had the audience that was very impressed and happy with what I produced. And then I had these amazing videos that I put up on YouTube for free. And that was a real benefit to me in that I could point to something now and see, look
Yes.
at what I created, look at the impact that it's having. I think about the most popular speech from the first event is a woman named Jackie Cummings Koski. And she found the fire movement at 38 years old. And she's a single Black mother that never made six figures, and she fired in 10 years. And
Wow.
she told her story. The title of her speech is The Real Numbers Behind Firing. She opened up the books and showed all her numbers, and it was really impactful. And she has gone on since then she's used that video, and she's like booked on the Rachel Ray show now. She had a Forbes article written. We had Market Watch at the last event, and they did a video piece on her, and I gave them all of my footage for free so that you would see the EconoMe logo, in that Market Watch video. So I think like me just kind of like putting it out there as much as possible and having something very visual for people to see. And again, with my sales background, I'm very conscious about quantifying results. So if you look at like my sales decks for sponsors or how I was pitching speakers, like I very much was like quantifying my success so that they could see it was real.
That's an interesting point, because that's not what a lot of people do. They pitch the vision, but there's very rarely the numbers behind it to
Mhm.
actually back up the vision.
Mhm.
How do you quantify your results? What kind of numbers do you use to
Yeah.
like,
So I did after a post event survey, and I was able to collect some data from the audience. So I knew that 90% of the audience would recommend this to a friend and come back. So that was
cool?
a really good metric. I have certain metrics like, so my mailing list is really small and my social media following is very small. Like if you looked at me, you would think this is not a big deal if you looked at me online. However, the audience is small, but they're mighty. So I have like, I don't know, 1,800 subscribers to my mailing list. It's not big, but I've got a 50% open rate because the people who are on the list are highly, highly engaged. I had all of the metrics from my YouTube channel. So I put those videos up on YouTube, and I was able to monetize within 3 months. It's because the content is so good and it's so shareable that the speakers were sharing their videos. Anytime I saw someone ask a question about something that was related to a video, I would post that in a reply on a forum, on Reddit, on Facebook groups. And so that really helped to drive traffic. I also asked questions in the survey like the attendees' age. So I was able to get certain insights out of that would help me get around certain objections, right? So some people would say, well, this event isn't for me because I'm older. This is for young people. It's held at a college. And I'd get to say, actually, 20% of our audience last year was over 50. So you're in good company. Or this is a local event. No one's going to travel from across the country to come to an event like this. And I'd say, actually, we had attendees come from 27 different states last year. So people are traveling to come to this, right? So all of those data points really helped me in talking to people about the conference.
I love that. So you've got the data, you secured the speakers by making the calls. What have you learnt about getting people to turn up to events? Because
Mm.
that's been like, as you probably know, we run an events business, or we
Mm-hmm.
did before the pandemic. Now it's anyway, we run an events business, and that's one of the biggest challenges, is to get through to people and say, here's an event. We know it's valuable for
Mm-hmm.
you. Come along. Like, the marketing and promotion of events is such a big task.
Yeah. And admittedly, I think I kind of suck at marketing. I mean, I will say that I have learned a lot, but it's still a pain point for me. And a big
Mm,
reason why I created an in-person event is because I don't like to interact on social media. I don't want to be very active. I don't consider myself an influencer where I've got to post every day, right? And because I'm not creating content, I don't see myself. I feel like I'm evolving into a content creator, but I don't really see myself that way. I see myself as a content curator and an event producer, right?
mm.
So the marketing online, the digital marketing side of it was very, very challenging for me. But a couple of things that I learned is don't give away tickets for free, because that to me, I was doing like, okay, so here's one thing that I think I did very well marketing wise. I recognize that I'm much more of a talker than a typer. Obviously I like to talk, right? And so I just went crazy getting on podcasts. I've had like 60 podcast interviews promoting this event.
Wow.
And so that that was something that I was really comfortable with. I'm much more comfortable talking. And so what I would do to kind of like convince the host to let me on the show is I'd say, I have a story behind this. It's not just me pushing my event. I have other things that I want to say, but what we can offer to your audience is a discount code on tickets, and we could do like a ticket giveaway that's going to support you in something else you're trying to get your audience to do. So a lot of times people wanted for podcasts, they would want their audience to rate and review on Apple Podcasts, right? You always hear
Mm.
hosts say that. And so what they could do is say, if you rate and review today and send me a screenshot, you're entered into a chance to win tickets to this conference.
I love that.
Yeah. So I was giving them almost like a way to engage with their audience. And, these tickets were $150, $200 each. So it was a big value to give away two of them. But here's the thing. What I learned through trying to give away tickets is that most people either aren't going to claim them or they aren't going to come if the tickets are free. And I think the reason is because the ticket price is actually the lowest barrier to entry for you actually coming to this event. You still have to take time off of work. You've got to find, someone to watch your kids. You got to book a hotel. You got to book a flight. Like the cost of coming, the ticket price is actually the least bit of a hurdle for that. And so giving away tickets was not a good move because most of those people aren't going to come. And then that screws with like my capacity and how many people are actually coming and how, do I have 250? Do I have 100 because I gave away too many for free? And I think naively in the beginning, I thought if I could just get people there, if I could just get butts in the seats and let them see how amazing this is, they'd be willing to pay next time. But I think that was just a very naive assumption. So no more free tickets. The discount codes are fine. I'm happy to still do those. But yeah.
So the podcast competitions didn't actually work that well.
No, and I think that they were a bad look for me, especially when people would do them like on Instagram or social media posts, because what would happen is they'd say, we're giving away a ticket, comment with like the reason why you want to come or the speaker you're most excited to see. And then nobody wanted the damn free tickets. And so then it looks like there's no demand for this event. So actually giving away something for free backfired and kind of made it look like there was less demand. I think really what helped me, especially as people were really getting excited to come together as COVID was dying down and everyone's so starved for human connection. I think that FOMO of like, everybody else is going. I mean, you kind of fell into that. You're like, my friends are going. I want to go.
All my friends are going.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, because Pete, Mr. Money Mustache, said I'm going. Carl, Mr. 1500, said I'm going. It's like, I get to hang out with all my friends if I go. Oh, no, I can't go because I'm out of time in the US. Yeah.
And it was interesting, too, how many people told me that they couldn't come because they had a conflict or there was some other reason that they couldn't come. And then last minute, the FOMO was so strong that they ended up buying a ticket anyway and figuring it out. I had one guy write me, and this was so I opened up, I offered to give full refunds up to 30 days before the event if you decided you weren't going to make it, right? And so you had up to 30 days. And this guy got a refund. And then he regretted it so much, saying that he wasn't going to come, that the week before he had early bird pricing. So he ended up paying more because he got a refund for his early bird pricing and then bought a ticket at full price because he regretted so much that he said he was, he thought he wasn't going to go because he saw his friends going. So that I think definitely helped me a lot.
Yeah. There's this thing of getting a few people to say yes. Will then get more people to say yes, that then gets more people to say yes. And yeah, it's huge. And the free tickets thing that you said is very interesting. As you know, the Rebel Business School, no one's ever paid to come to our events. All of our tickets have always been free, but we get about a 50% show up rate.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is actually really high for a free ticket. But free tickets, it's fascinating. Like the cost is the lowest barrier. You're
Mhm.
exactly right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well, and I'll say about your 50% no-shows and on a paid event, it's typical around 20%. I still have to run my numbers to see where I net it out there, but even when people pay, they still won't show up. Yeah.
Katie and I have done it. We've paid for an event, and then whatever happens, and you go, we've got an emergency, but we paid for the event. Oh, it's only a couple of hundred. We just
Mhm.
need to do this other thing. So
Right.
we've done it as well. And I think it's always going to happen to a certain percentage of the people, always.
Totally. Totally. Well, I'll say this about marketing too, because I know that when we were setting up this interview, one of the things I said to you that I learned that I was surprised by. So I had gone to an event, podcast movement in Nashville in like August of this year. And I
Mm,
met another event producer who produces an event called Podfest. He gets about 3,000 people to come to his event.
wow.
And we had some mutual friends, and so they recommended I talk to him about some of my challenges. And again, marketing is one of my biggest challenges. So I talked to him about it, and he really encourages me to reach out to people individually, reach out one by one. And I thought this is such an inefficient use of time, right? Like I'm trying to reach a broad, a larger audience to be able to attract my people. And he's like, no, one-on-one outreach will get you further. And so, I mean, this guy clearly knows what he's doing. He has a very successful events business. And so I thought, okay, let me try it. And I ended up reaching over the course of like a month and a half, I probably reached out individually to over 1,000 people. And these were people that were following me on Instagram, people that I was Facebook friends with. I was just reaching out. I reached out to over 1,000 people individually. And this had a higher conversion rate than anything else I've done. So it was about a 6% conversion rate, people buying tickets. Because it makes a huge difference when the founder of something reaches out to you and says, I'd really like for you to join us. And then I got to hear what the objections might be. Oh,
Yes.
well, I didn't think I would want to go because of this, or I don't understand what this is. Or, I remember this one guy I talked to, he was trying to decide if he would come to EconoMe or if he would go to another conference that was like about credit cards and like credit card hacking. And it was happening like within the same week. And so he didn't feel like he could go to both. And so I said, well, here are all the reasons why EconoMe is better. And I just shamelessly, pitched my event. And, this is all through just like an Instagram direct exchange. And he goes, you're a really good salesperson. I just bought a ticket. Like he was like, no one at credit card hacking conference
Says,
is
come.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I don't know that that's sustainable for the long term, but I think especially in these building years where I'm building a reputation, the EconoMe brand is really making a name for itself outside of the amazing speakers that we're able to attract. I think that it is worth, you got to have that hustle. But now, especially after my second event, and it blew up online after the second event, which was amazing to me and unexpected because the first event, people really liked it, but they didn't talk about it as much online, I think because all this COVID stuff was going on. So now after this event, people loved it and they talked about it a lot and they shared their pictures. And I mean, I spent probably about a week just scrolling and taking screenshots of the things that everyone was saying because
Wow.
if they're not tagging me or they're not using the hashtag or they're not tagging the
Yeah, you,
business, then I wouldn't know it. And so I'm just seeing out in the wild all these people talking about EconoMe, and it was just like crazy to me. So yeah, I think now I'm right at the cusp where I still have to market the event, but I don't have to push as hard as I did the first 2 years.
well, it's known now.
Yeah.
And my business partner, Simon, and I always talk about the sort of tidal wave thing,
Mm-hmm.
whereby you have to put the energy out there, you have to put the energy out there, and you do it almost for 2 years with get nothing back. But then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, there's this tidal wave that comes back that you weren't expecting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're building towards that. One thing I did want to comment on is the one-to-one messaging. And
Mm-hmm.
every Rebel Business School I teach and work on, people say to me, Alan, like, I just need to automate this.
Yeah.
I just need to find the system, create the system, buy the expensive piece of software, automate it. And I spend my time saying, like, you're doing exactly what I did. You're trying to automate it and be as smart as
Mhm.
possible, but stop being smart and start talking to people.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've been saying that for a long time now. Um, that shift of speaking one to one, what was the value of that piece of advice and how did it
It's
really help the
huge,
event?
huge. You know what it reminded me of? I remember, so I throw a big Christmas party every year. It's, for my friends, right? It's my Christmas extravaganza. And I remember years ago I was in an apartment in Brooklyn, and my best friend was helping me set up the party, and there were like 50 people who said they were going to come. And so I had all this food. I mean, I completely rearranged my furniture. I mean, I was expecting 50 people in my one bedroom apartment. And then like 20 people showed up. And I was so upset. And I felt so like, oh, these people said they were going to come and they didn't come. And my best friend at the time looks at me and she says, but look at the people who are here. Focus on them. They're here. They're supporting you. They want to be at your party. And so who cares about those 30 people that didn't come? Focus on these people. They are your people. And so when I got this advice to reach out one-on-one, I was kind of reminded of that spirit of like, focus on the people who are engaging with you versus the people who aren't, and just trust that. I needed to have this trust that it's just going to work out in the long run, and I don't need millions of people to come to my event. I don't need millions of followers on social media platforms. I actually only have capacity for 560 people. It's really not unreasonable for me to reach out to them one-on-one, and sell one ticket at a time from individual outreach. It's not like I'm trying to get thousands of people here. And so I think that there's a lot of value also in just like customer service. Anyone who sent me an email, anyone who reached out to me in any capacity always got a very nice response from me. That to me is just, when you get so big that you can't answer everyone, I understand that, but I'm not there, right? I mean, I guess it's a good problem to have, but I'm not that big. So anyone who is interested in EconoMe will get a personal response from me.
Which is incredible. And like, I've kind of got to the stage where I can't keep up with messages and emails, and I still haven't figured that one out because I feel dreadful. People send me lovely messages and I don't reply.
Yeah.
And there's just too many because you get WhatsApp messages and Facebook messages and Twitter
Yeah.
messages, and then you get emails. And yeah, it's really interesting. I used to reply to every single person that
Mhm.
responded, and I still go through fits and starts. So if
Mhm.
you're listening to this and I've ignored you, I'm really sorry. Uh, but you go through fits and starts where I get on top of my email and then I get distracted by life, and
Yeah. Mhm.
the
Mhm.
inbox fills up. And
But you went through a period of time when you had the capacity to answer, right? And that's kind
yeah,
of where I'm at now. And I don't want to miss that opportunity to
no,
engage with my initial supporters.
they're your
That's
lifelong
huge.
fans.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
So I love that you're doing that. I love that you're doing that. So you're building this incredible conference. Where do you want to go with it? What's the
Mm.
vision for EconoMe?
It's funny because at this last event, we had 400 people, and everyone said to me, this is going to blow up. You're going to have to get a bigger venue. You have to do multiple events a year. You got to do this and that, blah, 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 right? It's like everyone expects me to build an empire off of this. And I don't know if that necessarily interests me. I think I'm much more excited about high impact, right? And so thinking about growing this event to 2,000 people is not appealing to me because I think a big part of the magic for the attendees was that it was relatively small, that you could walk up to any one of like the 5 famous people and just have a conversation, right? You wouldn't necessarily be able to do that at a 2,000 person event. And so I think that I'm just a real stickler for attendee experience, down to like the tiny little details of how comfortable the chairs are for you to sit there for 2 hours and listen to speakers. Or like the campus that we have it on is the University of Cincinnati. I get lost every time I go there. So I printed, and actually my boyfriend lovingly placed 500 branded footprints all over campus to help you find the venue, right? The check-in, like from the moment you walk in, you're greeted by, you've got a warm person greeting you. Check-in ran so smoothly. We had to get 400 people in the door in half an hour, and it was like super smooth. The lighting, the music, the atmosphere, the flow of traffic, that stuff to me is what makes the attendee experience more pleasant, so that people are a bit more open to what you're going to learn and the people you're going to meet, versus distracted by, the being uncomfortable in some way. And so I would rather perfect that part of the event and, increase revenue from raising the ticket price than worry about increasing the size of the audience. I think there's a lot of value in keeping it small. I would rather see 400 or 560 tickets, which is my max capacity. I want to see those sell out in a minute. That to me is so much more exciting than, multiple events a year and bigger venue and all this kind of stuff. And also, we're recording all of the main stage speakers. And so the people that are the most interested in the actual content at the event, I tell them to save your money. Don't come to the event if all you want to do is see these main stage speakers, because I'm going to give that to you for free. I'm really investing in videography, and you're going to see these beautiful videos up on my YouTube channel. You don't pay for a ticket for the content. You pay for the community and to be in the position to contribute to the community. Because I think one of the things that sounds a little weird to say out loud, but the customer for EconoMe is as much the product as they are the customer. I got to have cool, badass people in that room, right? I got to have people that are willing to have fun and engage with each other. That is what creates the magic of the event. So the boring people that are there just for a speech and like to pull out a spreadsheet and take some notes and then go home, just stay home. I'll give it to you for free.
Interesting. I love it. So one thing you have inspired me from that last section is, so many people come to me and say, Alan, I've got to scale my business. And I think every MBA, every business training course talks about scalability. How are you going to scale? How are you going to grow? What are you going to do? And I keep thinking, why?
Yeah.
Why are you scaling? What is the purpose? Can you earn enough from one event a year that actually looks after you? And the answer is yes. There's some people that run incredible events, and they run one event really well. So you don't have to scale. And anyone listening to this, the same thing. You do not have to scale. It's like, why are you doing this? When is enough profit, money, the right amount?
Right.
And I think it's about creating a life you actually want to live. Because we've
Exactly.
done that with some of our events where we push, grow, and then it's just not fun. And then you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. And you actually kill the thing you love sometimes if you grow.
You make such a good point there. And I actually was on a different podcast talking about some of my self-limiting beliefs around personally profiting from this business. It's been a mindset shift for me because I built this as a passion project. I built this, and the whole business model is not intended for me to make a personal profit from it, right? This was supposed to be what I was doing with my time when I had no need to make money for my livelihood. Now that considerably changed because I decided not to wait until financial independence to do it. And I actually left my corporate job this past January. So that cushy 6-figure salary that was subsidizing my ability to produce this event has now gone away. So I I've had to kind of shift my thinking around it doesn't matter if I ever make money off of this to I'm not going to let this business bankrupt me, right? I have to make the business has to be profitable for it to be sustainable. And I need to be more willing to allow myself to compensate myself for my time so that I can put more of myself into it. Because what was happening is because I wasn't allowing myself to make money off of EconoMe, I was needing to make that money elsewhere. And that was causing stress, right? It fills up your life when you've got your passion project that you don't make any money off of, and then you've got your work that you do make money off of. And so I'm in the process now of shifting there. But yeah, I mean, the business will be profitable by the next event. It will turn a healthy profit by the next event, but it will have been 5 years since I started working on it before I'll ever make a dime off of it. And I know that you help people, start businesses without getting in the red. So it is embarrassing to tell you that I took a 40 grand loss on my first event. But here's the thing I'll also say about these kind of entrepreneurial pursuits. There's a part of me that wanted to protect it as a creative endeavor. And I think there is some value to that. You don't have to make money out of all the work that you do. But if you're super passionate about it, it may lead to something more than what you set out to do. And that's what I'm finding for myself. I didn't set out to make a bunch of money off of EconoMe, but it is growing into a very profitable business. And so, it's just interesting that you have to have the willingness to take some risks for something that you really believe in. And if you were to have never made a profit off of it, would you still do it? I had to ask myself that question, especially before the first event, because I knew I was going to take a 40 grand loss. And once I was seeing that the ticket sales did not cover my costs, I mean, there was not a lot of business justification for me to produce the first event, right?
No.
I could have very easily said, there's not enough demand for this. There are not enough sales to cover my costs. This was a good idea, but nobody wants this. I'm going to shut it down. The way I looked at it instead is that I have the financial bandwidth because I had been saving 60% of my income to take a risk and create something I really want to see in the world. And so I don't have any children. I don't plan on having any children. I look at EconoMe like my baby. And if I were to actually have a child, it would cost me a hell of a lot more than 40 grand over 18 years. Right. And so I thought in my mind, if I lose this 40 grand and then the business shuts down and I never do this again, is it still worth it? And yes, to me it was, because I was able to create something that I'm really proud of. And then there's a lot of value to me in that. So I think it's that kind of almost emotional attachment to a creative endeavor, to a passion project, to something you really want to see in the world that can enable you to push through the scary 40 grand loss, the 150 people turning you down. I wasn't able to get any sponsors my first year. That's why I was the sponsor. That 40 grand was me sponsoring the event, and
you had your name in lights above the event.
Exactly. And the thing about the pursuit of financial independence, I think it really sets you up to take some entrepreneurial risks, because I had a 60% savings rate and I had a pretty good 6-figure income. So even though I lost 40 grand, that 40 grand, and I didn't lose it, I invested it in my business, right? Let's not say lose. That's when I feel bad about it. I say I lost it. When I'm feeling good about it, I say I invested it in my own business. But that 40 grand is what I would have put into an after-tax brokerage for my FI savings, right? To reach my FI number. So I was still fully funding all of my retirement vehicles. My living expenses are only about 30 grand a year. So I cash flowed that 40 grand. I didn't take out any debt for it. I didn't have any investors for that. I was able to do it all on my own. And I think the pursuit of FI set me up to be able to do that. You hear about entrepreneurs that are like draining their 401k to fund their business. Like, no, I am not doing that. And I would
That
not take
me.
It does. And you only hear the times that it works out, right? And it works out very few times. And so I was not going to put myself in a position to take a 40 grand loss every year, right? I needed to know that like this was going to go somewhere, and I had enough belief in it. So, yeah, I'm not going to let this business bankrupt me, but I was willing to take that big risk in the first year.
It's interesting because the general philosophy of the Rebel Entrepreneur podcast and the whole business school is sell the tickets first,
Mhm.
and if it doesn't cover the costs, like just don't do it. Hand back the money and don't do it. You went through and did it anyway,
Mhm.
and you accepted that for all the reasons you said. The second year, it grew massively. Have you recouped the 40 grand loss, or that'll be the third year?
So that'll be the third year. This year, so because I was able to cash flow that 40 grand, the second year made about, it's like a 30 grand profit from the second event. Now, that 30 grand profit is basically my carrying costs till the next event. So it's not like I'm taking that money out and living on it. I don't look at it as I have not taken out my 40 grand investment. It's still in the business. But because I was able to do that, cash flow is pretty healthy. And the projections for the next event are very healthy because I'm increasing the ticket price, because I've already sold 150 tickets I did a pre-sale while we were at the event. So I have a lot
Amazing.
of confidence. I mean, these people don't even know when the date is, but they loved it so much that they were willing to fork over, money to buy a ticket this far in advance. It's like 18 months in advance. I have sponsors that are already committed to increase their sponsorship level for the next event. So, I mean, I've already banked about 40 grand, and I just ended this last event, and I've already banked about 40 grand for the next event. So that gives me a lot of confidence that the days of 40 grand losses are over.
And I think there is a very important point that I want to bring up. I don't know if this will help you, but definitely for the audience, is never be afraid to make a profit.
Yeah.
Because if you are delivering something that helps other people, if you're delivering something of value into the world, people want to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to pay for it. Like if it's an event that I love, I will happily pay for it. And I've had this experience recently of there are people who run things and do things that I truly love, and I don't want them to stop.
Yeah.
And I want them to charge me more. I'm like,
Right.
if you're not making money, charge me more so you keep doing it because I love it.
Yeah.
And if people want what you do, there's no shame in making a profit. And actually, if you don't make a profit, you won't want to keep doing it. There
Right.
comes a stage where you go, this shit is just not worth it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and if you're not covering your costs, if you're not looking at that, you just won't want to do it. And I've found that in different places. And even if you're FI, like even if you don't need the money, there comes a point where you just go, this is just not worth it.
Yeah.
And it sounds strange, but you don't need the money and the event is like, or whatever it is you're doing is a hassle.
Right.
You go, well, it's just not worth it. It's just adding nothing to my life.
Well, I think, again, I've always known that the business needs to be profitable. I think I'm now shifting my mindset to recognize that I need to be compensated for all the work that I'm putting into it.
It's
But
huge.
it is huge. And I think the business needing to be profitable allows me to outsource more, bring in more help, pay the people that are helping me. I mean, there are so many people that come out of the woodwork to help me that I haven't been able to afford to pay. And so be in this year, even though the business is still in the red, because the event itself was profitable, I threw a few $1,000s at the people that really helped me, the volunteers, a few key volunteers that I wouldn't be able to do this without. And it wasn't because they didn't care about the money. They just want to support me. But I was able to show my appreciation by paying them. And I think it's important when you're getting something started, people are willing to, support you and maybe give their time and volunteer. But as the thing grows, like I've got to show them my appreciation in return in some monetary way. And so I was really happy to be in a position to do that. But I want to be in a position to, pay for people to help me market this thing. That so that I can focus on the parts of the event that I really enjoy, and then the things that are really challenging for me, I can get some more support there. But I need to turn a profit before I can do that.
Definitely. Definitely. So, for the people listening, like, you have thrown your energy into creating a huge event. What are the biggest learnings you've had through this process of
Um,
taking and building a giant event?
I would say that the skills that make me a very good employee make me a horrible entrepreneur.
So true.
So true, right? So, like, when I think about my corporate career, and I had these big clients like Budweiser and, multi-billion dollar names, and I worked at the biggest licensing agency in the world. So we had the best talent in the world. Our quality of work was top notch. Nothing went out the door unless it was perfect, right? And you had 10 people put their seal of approval on it. When I'm by myself building this brand, producing this event, I don't have other people to give me a pat on the head and say that looks good. I don't have the checks and balances that I had in my corporate career, and I don't have the luxury of putting out perfect stuff. So I have to throw shit at the wall and see what works. I have to be willing to be messy. I have to be willing to start ugly. And that was a huge shift for me, big learning for me. I was scared. It was not my normal way of working. I'm a perfectionist. I did not like it at all. And I had to push past my comfort zone and be willing to do that. I think that entrepreneurship can be a really intense form of therapy, because you're going to see where all your insecurities are. They are just going to come up and taunt you, and very intensely, right? So I'm more comfortable in front of a microphone now, but when I was building this thing, I didn't think it was about me. I didn't think I was going to have to be a personality. I didn't think I was going to have to put myself out there and tell my story and have all the attention on me. And really, I look at it now as it's not about me. I'm a vessel for sharing information. But at the time, I did not like it. I did not. I'm the kind of person that thinks I want to be the center of attention, but then when it actually happens, I want to crawl under a table, right? And so I had to get over that, and it was really challenging. I also will tell you that I very much struggled with my mental health. I went through very dark periods. I mean, before the first event, so the first event was in March of 2020. I would say from July to like October of 2019, I was severely depressed. Like couldn't get out of bed. I was putting so much pressure on myself. I was not taking care of myself, and I didn't have the coping skills to deal with all of these insecurities that were coming up. So it took a lot of work and coaching and getting help for myself to be able to push past that. And I think I do have the skills now that I'm able to better navigate uncertainty. That's the thing. Entrepreneurship is all uncertainty, and we don't like that. Our brains do not like that. And so when you throw yourself into uncertainty and you don't have coping mechanisms for that, it's a recipe for a mental health crisis. And I lived through it. My friends and family were very worried about me. They've never seen me that way. And so I will say that if anyone else is going through that, know that it's normal, because I felt a lot of shame. Like I can't hack it. I'm so fortunate that I get to have this opportunity to live my dream, and I'm struggling with my mental health. This doesn't make any sense. Like I felt like I was wasting an opportunity, and it was really, really hard. But I've come to understand that that is very normal, and that many entrepreneurs go through a lot of highs and lows. It's just a part of the game. Just like the stock market, right? We got to ride that roller coaster and recognize that if we stay on the roller coaster, we'll likely make out in the end. So yeah, I feel like I'm taking a long time to answer this question, but a lot of learnings that I did not expect at all. Also, when you're budgeting, doing projections, making assumptions on a business that is brand new, you're going to be wrong about everything. Wrong about everything. And so that was hard, right? Like, I'm a type A person, I'm a planner. I was making all these brilliant plans and coming up with like how I'm going to do this and how this is going to go. And then it doesn't go that way, or people don't behave the way you think they're going to behave. And that's just part of the game too. You're going to be wrong about everything. It's just the way that life is in general, but especially with entrepreneurship.
You're going to be wrong about everything. I love that. If you're listening to this, when you launch your business, you're going to be wrong about everything. You will go and see a customer. They will tell you they don't want it. They want something completely different. That's the most succinct sentence I've ever said, because I was exactly the same. I was wrong about everything. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And I go and see a customer and they go, we don't care. This is what we want. And I'm like, oh, no. And I was surprised how wrong I was. I think the bit that I didn't realize is the process of being wrong is how you work out what to do.
Yes.
And that's the bit that affected my mental health, because I thought, I'm just wrong, I'm just wrong, I'm just wrong. I never really related that to, if I keep being wrong, eventually I'll get to being right.
Yeah.
And then eventually you find something that works and you have one customer and then this and then that, and it starts to go. But I never really realized that. So I think that's a phenomenal lesson. So to everyone listening this, you're going to be wrong about everything, and that's okay. Just keep going.
Also, maybe that's a good thing, right? I think what I had to learn is to stop being so attached to my ideas that I thought were right, because they're going to be wrong. We've already established that, right? But if I can let them go and just be open to the opportunities that are presenting themselves and recognize that I don't know everything. I don't know, the way that this perfectly should roll out. And so, yes, I need to make plans, but I also need to be flexible and open to like the opportunities that are being presented to me. So I'll give you an example, a couple of examples. My after party venue, basically, I thought it was shutting down due to COVID, and I couldn't get them to commit to my date. And so by the time the guy got back to me, or I was able to get in touch with him again, they had sold the venue to another place, to new owners. And they had already booked that date for like a wedding. And they were going to, triple the cost, because the guy was not charging me nearly enough as he should have for that space. And so I lost my after party venue, and I was devastated, because in my mind, that's the place I got to have my after party. That's the right thing to do. Well, what ended up happening is we had the after party in the same venue as the rest of the event. We just flipped the room over the course of 2 hours. I had already paid for the space for the day. It was cheaper, and it was better for the audience because we were closer to their hotels. It actually, plan B, that I thought was an inferior plan, was actually the superior plan. It's a good thing that I lost that venue. So this other example of me not knowing best, and to me, it's the humility of realizing I don't know what's best, right? So there I've been speakers that, I'm working with them on deciding what they're going to speak about. They're working on their speech. I don't agree with whatever, or it's not for me, it's not for my taste, and I'm the one curating this thing. And so, maybe I don't like something about the content that's coming through, but you know what? I'm one opinion. I'm just one opinion. There's 400 people in that room that all have different tastes. And so I'm not the end all be all. And so I think what I've learned too is like the people that I'm working with, as long as I've established an element of trust with them and that there's a strong enough relationship there, I got to let them do what they want to do, right? And I treat the whole production team, we've got about 50 people that are there for the day of the event, whether it's lighting, sound, videography. We've got breakout session leaders, we've got volunteers, we've got the speakers, we've got stage manager, production manager, right? All of these people. I'm not a dictator when it comes to the team. I am smart enough to surround myself with people smarter than me and to give them creative liberty for us to put on a really good show together. And so I've had to let go of some control in that sense of, I don't know the best after party venue. I don't know the best content and speech for those speakers. I've got to be open to watching it unfold at the same time as I'm creating it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it also sounds terrifying.
It is. It is. This is where the uncertainty comes in. This is where the depression and the anxiety and the mental health issues come from, is because I was resistant to that. I was so
you were
resistant
fighting
to
it.
that. I was fighting it and I wanted to control everything. And once I really learned how to let go and enjoy the process and trust that I don't know best, things started really happening in such a magical way.
What a journey you have been on. And I think, Diana, just the biggest thank you for being open about it all, about what you've learned, what went well, what went wrong. Because sometimes when you have these chats, people like to present the picture of here's everything that went well. And you never see the real life ups and downs, which we all actually go through. And everyone listening to this podcast has been building businesses and launching them. And that's the whole point of this, is let's honestly share the ups and downs, the things that go well, the things that go badly, so that we can all learn together. And you have been on a phenomenal learning journey, which now you're applying to year 3 and you'll apply to year 4, and it will get better and better and better every time you do it.
Yeah, that's the plan. That is the plan, Alan.
I love it. So if people want to come along to EconoMe, to meet the speakers, to experience this phenomenal event you create, where do they go?
Yeah. So you can go to EconoMeConference.com, and EconoMe is actually spelled with an M-E at the end, not an M-Y, because I think I'm so clever. But yes, EconoMeConference.com. There you can sign up for my mailing list, and you can kind of check out. We're doing some updates to the website right now, but you can check out, the past speakers, the programming. We've got frequently asked questions, that kind of stuff. And so sign up for the mailing list so that you can keep in touch with me and follow the journey to the next event. That's where I'll announce speakers. That's where I communicate the most, is through my email newsletter. And you can also subscribe to the EconoMe Conference YouTube channel. And there you're going to see all of the videos from past events. And I've also got, a highlight reel for you, so you really get a feel for the vibe of what it's like to be there. So you can binge watch all of those videos and get yourself pumped to join us in the spring of 2023. And then finally, we've talked all about the EconoMe Conference, but I also do host another podcast called Optimal Finance Daily. And this is a show where I narrate blog posts from very popular personal finance bloggers, people like Paula Pant, J.L. Collins, Mr. Money Mustache. So I like to say all these bloggers wrote these amazing songs and I get to perform the covers. So it is every single day in 10 minutes or less. So you can subscribe there and check me out there as well.
Fantastic. And do go and check out the conference. Do listen to that. I am hoping to be there in 2023.
You better be there, Alan.
Better be there. I really do want to come this year. And it'll be nice to meet everyone and see everyone. And so, if you're going along, I will see you there. Thank you so much for being on the show, sharing your story. If you're listening to this is the oxygen that keeps us going as entrepreneurs, is the real life stories where you get to see, hear what it's actually like building businesses. And you can learn from what we do that we wouldn't do again. And you can learn from what we did that actually worked. EconoMe Conference, go find the website, come along, have a wonderful time building businesses. And thank you for listening to The Rebel Entrepreneur. You can have any life you want to. Choose to build something cool. Choose to take action. Choose to work to make your dreams become reality. Stand out. Be different. Be yourself. Be a rebel entrepreneur.